So, 2 years ago, I made a video on downsizing, and 2 years later, I'm gonna do it again. But instead of just talking about the figures that I'm planning to let go of, the ones that I'm thinking about, or maybe even some of the ones I've already sold, instead, I would like to, on top of that, talk about the topic itself, talk about downsizing, because I feel like it's a very relatable side of the hobby that not everybody really likes to focus on. It's often seen as a negative, where I personally don't see it that way at all. So that's what we're going to be talking about today, downsizing and my personal opinions on it. And I know not everybody needs to downsize. This video isn't meant for everybody, but if you're interested in this topic, then feel free to continue watching, right? Now, I should state, not quitting. I'm not planning to just sell everything. I still love collecting. I still have 30 figures pre-ordered right now. I'm not going anywhere. But again, when you hear downsizing, you might think that things are slowing down, but that ain't the case. I just need a bit of a refresher right now and a bit of a reminder of why I started to collect in the first place. Now, downsizing. Why would you do it? Well, there's plenty of reasons, and it's going to be different for everybody depending on your situation. It might be very simple, like you're moving, which is my main reason for downsizing right now. 2 years ago when I made that original video, I was in the process of moving, and it's just such a perfect excuse to get rid of some of your stuff that you're not really as attached to as you once were. Right? You don't really want to have to lug everything to a new place and set it all up. God forbid you break something along the way. It's just, if you already don't care about some stuff in your collection, then that's the perfect reason to just let go of some stuff, right? But then there's also the case of just not having enough space for your figures, whether you're moving or not. This is the killer of collecting, right? Just not having enough real estate to properly enjoy everything that you're buying. I'm certainly very guilty of just putting stuff in a closet, hoping that one day I find the right spot for it. But 5 or 6 years later, I still don't, and I'm being honest with that. There are some figures that I still have not opened to this day, because I guess I'm a bit of a hoarder, and I don't want to miss out on things that I like, but at the same time, if I haven't displayed them yet, do I really need them? Well, that's on a figure-to-figure basis, but that's also for you to decide. Unfortunately, I do not live in a mansion, and also I am moving into a smaller apartment, and I'm also going to be sharing that space with my girlfriend who also collects. So I need to think about all right, what do I really need to hold on to? There's also other reasons. God forbid you have a medical emergency, a family emergency, you need the funds, bills are piling up. This is an extremely expensive hobby, and thankfully it's not too hard to sell figures, though at the same time, a lot of them do go down in price. But just needing some extra cash could be a totally valid reason for letting go of some of your figures. But you know what? Sometimes it's a lot more simple than that. Maybe there's just some figures in your collection that you pre-ordered, you got them, and you didn't really like them as much as you were hoping to for one reason or another. Maybe the company just messed up along the way. You took a gamble on a company that you never bought from before. Or maybe it's just a case of outgrowing the character, outgrowing the series. As we grow older, our tastes change. It might not be a bad show or anything, but it's just not something that you're personally connected to anymore. Seasonal anime is where you'll probably find this happen the most. You just get hyped about a show, and then it doesn't air for a while, you kind of forget about it. Meanwhile, the figure takes a year or two to come out, you finally get it, and you haven't thought about that show in months, and then you just don't really have that same appreciation for it that you initially did when you first either paid for it or pre-ordered it, right? So there's just a lot of stuff that goes into this, and it's going to be different for everybody. So I hate to do this, but I am in desperate need of some B-roll, so we got to talk about some figures that fit into that prior category, figures that I'm not really as attached to for one reason or another. And there's more than just this, but I figured because I need to put something on the screen so that you're not indefinitely staring at me, we got to take out the phone and start talking about some stuff. So, for instance, we got some Nendoroids here, not too many, but we have the Tatsumaki Nendo from One Punch Man. Now, I just bought this on a whim. Turned out to be a pretty rare Nendo, at least going for $100 right now, maybe even more, but at the time I paid $60, which I believe is the retail. Turns out, never opened it, so I guess I don't really need it, right? And I got a buddy who definitely wants this figure, so I might as well just hook him up with the price that I paid. But we also have other Nendos like Renge from Non Non Biyori, Alba from New Game Plus, the seasonal shows I haven't really thought about in a while. There's a couple more Nendos, but we'll talk about them a little bit later. As far as scale figures, though, go, we got the Hacker from 7th Dragon 2020, which I did make a video about a long time ago. Great figure, just does not fit in my collection at all. I cannot find a place for her, and I feel like I could easily let go of her because her box is massive. I would love the space. We have Nadeko from the Monogatari series. This is one of my first figures I have ever bought, but I think it's time to let this one go. But that's an amazing figure for the price. It's like $50 right now. So if you're a beginner collector and you like the Monogatari series and you like Nadeko, I would recommend that one wholeheartedly. We also have the Chino and Shadow figures from Is the Order a Rabbit? I talked about these two in the last downsizing video 2 years ago, which means they've just been sitting on a shelf doing absolutely nothing. I really need to sell these at some point, but I just can't really find the right buyers. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this before on the channel, but I had a friend who moved like across the country, and I took a bunch of his figures telling him that I would sell them for him, and I did for the most part, but I still have two that I've yet to get rid of: the 1/4 scale Miku from Freeing and a Yomu figure from Griffin Enterprise. That figure is just so old, I feel like nobody really wants it, but the Miku literally just got re-released, which is terrible timing for me because that box is massive. So I better figure that one out. But yeah, just to wrap this part of the video up so we can move on, a couple more figures for you. We have Shiro from No Game No Life. This one's made by Fat Company. Extremely popular figure. Not really that expensive. I remember buying it from like eBay for $80 back in the day. But you know what? I don't think about No Game No Life at all. So I really don't need this one. I think it should go to a better home. We also have this one Sonic figure from First 4 Figures. I literally only bought this to get free shipping on something else from the IGN store. I really should have just paid the shipping fee, but at the same time, I know I saved a lot, so it was like kind of worth it, but now I have this burden of selling a pretty big figure. But then we got a few more here that I'm still thinking about, not sure if I want to let them go just yet, like Shinobu from Demon Slayer, Reese from Trials of Mana, an absolutely beautiful figure, but the situation around Angela just makes me so sad, and I'm never gonna buy that figure. Pretty sure it's like hard to find, and it didn't even turn out great. So like, I don't know if I want this constant reminder of the figure that I would rather have that ended up being a very disappointing figure in the end. So I don't know about that one. We got Mona from Genshin Impact. I have never played Genshin Impact in my life, not a single second of it. I just like the character design, which is why I still kind of want to keep it, but I know deep down, when I really truly run out of space, this one will probably have to go, even though her design is killer. I like a lot of things about it, a lot of obvious things, you know what I'm talking about, but I just don't have to keep it. And then I feel kind of bad about this one, but we also have Marth from Fire Emblem, and I just bought this figure. I really like it. I think it turned out fantastically. Art style issues aside, if you don't like it, not really the conversation we're having right now, but there's so many Fire Emblem figures, and I know that I can't keep collecting for it. I just don't have the space to get into a series with like that many characters. It's kind of like the Kaseki series. I know as soon as I play those games, I'm gonna want a lot of those figures. I'm sure I'm gonna like a lot of those characters, but there's so many at this point, and it's like maybe I should just stay away. I'm not sure yet, but we'll see. I still haven't, let him go just yet, but he is kind of on the chopping block when I do need space. But let's talk about tips. How do you decide on what you should let go of? Well, I think there's a lot of ways to go about it, but the probably easiest way to like figure out what you should get rid of is just look at your list and pick out the ones that you're not really as attached to as you initially were, which hopefully is not that hard, but that also depends on like how big your collection is. But surely you have figures that you like more than others. In fact, if you can't really come up with a list of figures that you don't like as much as you used to, then just do the opposite. Make a list of figures that you absolutely adore and that you would never want to get rid of. Because once you pick your favorites, it will definitely be easier to kind of trickle down the list and be like, all right, that one, don't really need it anymore. That one didn't really turn out as good as I once thought it did. I'm not trying to say this will be easy, but you have to do something in order to like break down your list and kind of figure out what you don't need anymore. Another thing you could do though, and you might already be doing this in terms of like your collecting habits, but you're not looking at it from a downsizing perspective, is just to put restrictions on the way you collect. If there's one pitfall that collectors tend to fall into, and let me just state, I'm absolutely guilty of this, I ain't above anybody, it's that they try and completionists collect a lot of the time. Especially early on, when you're very excited about the hobby, you see like a franchise getting so many figures that you really like, and you want all of them. You have one character that you absolutely love, and you make a plan to get every single figure from any company that makes a figure of them, just in hopes to have the ultimate collection of your favorite character. Or maybe even just like, you know, a series getting a bunch of bunny figures and you just like the design so much that you want to get each and every one. People do that all the time, and I think that's fine when it's like your absolute favorites, your like top 3, but once you get past that, that's kind of the point where you need to be like, alright, maybe I should cut off here. I don't need everything from this franchise. Now, like I said, I'm very guilty when it comes to just buying a little bit too much than I really need, and I definitely play favoritism towards certain characters. In fact, as I've collected more over the years, I've actually put like more of my efforts to get more figures of specific characters over getting like a wide range of characters instead. Like, do I really need 20 figures of Taiga? Yes. But for other cases, probably not. Which is why I kind of put the one figure per character rule into my mindset. I feel like that's the easiest way to control a collection from overgrowing. And once again, we take out the phone to give you a few more examples. For instance, I am selling my Bocchi the Rock Nendo of Hitori. Now this is extremely cute, but something I've realized is that I have ordered already like 5 figures of Hitori, and I don't really need that many. Now, I'm not going to get rid of all of them besides one, but right now, considering I have like 3 on the way, like in the next unboxing you will see a new figure or 2 of Hitori, I don't think I need the Nendo. Of everything I've like pre-ordered or even own right now, this one, while still very good, is my least favorite or like least needed in my collection. We also have the Pecora Nendo from HoloLive, another really cute Nendo, essentially perfect in my opinion, but because I'm pre-ordering the Aniplex version of Pecora, the one that's doing a crossover with Fate Grand Order, where she's wearing Mash's armor, I don't feel like I need both of these figures right now. One of the easiest things for me is to let go of the Nendo of the character when I have a scale either on the way or I already own one. They're almost like placeholders for me because I still want something of the character, but I'm unsure if something better is going to get announced in the future. Now, for someone like Pecora or Hitori, that's not really the case, but I just kind of like bought into the hype of the Nendos getting announced. But for instance, we have Akko from Little Witch Academia. Really good Nendo. In fact, one of my favorites that I've had, but I also have her scale figure, which honestly might be a little controversial that I'll keep the scale over the Nendo, even though the scale isn't like the best thing out there. My favorite Nendos are like the weird ones, or the ones that kind of match up with the character's proportions. Like you got Kirby, a perfect Nendo, it just looks like Kirby. Arale from Dr. Slump, the Gyoza Fairy from Dorohedoro, Jack Frost, Pyro Jack, Black Frost, like all of these just look like minifigures of the characters. Those are my favorite types of Nendos. So yeah, even though Akko is an amazing Nendo, I just prefer the scale more that Akko got. And it's like her only one, and it's kind of obscure, like not a lot of people have it, and it's kind of like rare at this point. And if I sell it, I'll regret it more most likely instead of the Nendo, which just got re-released. But yeah, that's a very specific example. Now this next one might be a little bit blasphemous, but I think I'm going to be selling my Guts Pop-Up Parade, which I think is the best budget figure on the market right now. So why would I get rid of it? Well, I have the Prime 1 Studios figure coming, or more like a statue, the one that pairs up with Griffith, and I just started to pay it off, and nothing is touching that Guts statue, right? Like that thing is immaculate, and I cannot wait to get it. But at the same time, because of that, I don't feel like I need the Guts Pop-Up Parade. It did its job. It gave me an amazing Guts figure at such an affordable price that you cannot beat, but like, I have to let go of some stuff, right? And I feel like, unfortunately, that one is one that I can let go of easily because I know I'm getting something else from Berserk and of Guts in the future. And I know it's going to be better, unless like Prime 1 Studio messes up, but I'm pretty sure they didn't. But yeah, also in this category, we have Power and Denji, both of their Nendoroids. Now that I have scale figures of them, scales that I really like, I think it's time to let these go. We have the Banpresto Artorias figure, now that I have the Gecko one, and that thing is, again, immaculate and beautiful. I do not need this smaller version of Artorias. Though surprisingly, this one's a little expensive, even though I don't think the build quality is outstanding or anything. I guess it's serviceable, but it does kind of surprise me. Speaking of Chainsaw Man, I probably will let go of one of my power figures. I haven't decided which yet, leaning towards the Yamakuni version. As you know, I was a little disappointed with that one just because of the teeth. Don't know why they had to mess that up. Kamiya now from the Idolmaster, I have 2 figures of her. There's Ryza, which is a situation where I might want a different figure of her. Really like the one where she's eating the apple from Ryza 2. But the one I bought from Max Factory is good, but also had a few things that I wasn't the biggest fan of, so I might let go of that one in the future. I've also been thinking about Dawn and May from Pokemon. Now, in Dawn's case, I have 2 figures of her, and I just feel like the one from Diamond and Pearl is the more, like, iconic look, and the one I should settle on, even though I really do like the winter outfit that they put Dawn in for Platinum, and just like the vibrant red is very appealing, so this one's been a bit of a hard decision for me. But then with May, my girlfriend has the other figure of May, which is from Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire, and I know she really likes that figure, so I think because I'm not like super attached to the original May look, even though I do like it, I think I'm okay with letting go of that one. It doesn't feel like a necessity to keep. Oh, and I forgot to talk about this one earlier, but I might also be getting rid of my Cynthia figure from Pokemon. I have not opened that figure yet, and I've owned it for 3 years. The box is excessively big, and I would love to save that space for something else, but I don't know, because Cynthia is kind of cool, but the fact that I didn't open it yet makes me feel like I don't really need it, and I know I got a buddy who would really like that figure too, so I might, just let it go to him. I haven't decided yet. But yeah, that's most of the figures that I've been thinking about lately. There's a few more, I might just put them on screen right now or throughout the video, but there's not like that much to talk about with them, so we'll move on. Point being, you'll have special characters and special franchises that you'll want to collect a lot for. But after that, if you have to, try and limit yourself to like not going crazy on other series that you like, but you know you don't have to get everything. Another tip for you though, if you're trying to downsize, right, can't decide what to get rid of, what to sell, look at your collection, right, the ones that are on display, and pack them up. Put them away, throw them in a closet, put them in the other room, and just give it some time. Give it like a month or so, and if you realize after all of that time you don't really mind that they were put away, then it might be okay that you let them go, right? A lot of my reasoning for collecting is like sentimental attachment, or just like, trying to show off like my favorite franchises and stuff like that. And if I'm okay with like not having that be part of my decor, then I guess I don't really need it. But of course that only would work if you are somebody who collects for those reasons. Some people only like to collect because the figures are attractive, whether they're sculpted beautifully or the characters are just super hot, right? Like everybody collects for different reasons, but having that attachment to the characters will make you want to keep them over others if you have like a similar mindset to me. But there is one extra way to save a lot of space, and not everybody's gonna like this, but at the same time, a lot of you guys might already do this, and that's just to chuck the boxes. Just get rid of them. Boxes take so much space that you wouldn't even imagine how much you save once you start just throwing them out. Just getting rid of them. Now, if you're moving, I highly recommend not doing this because moving will be so much easier if you have all the boxes. Not to mention, selling figures too will be so much more of a breeze if you keep your boxes. I almost want to say it's like implied that you take better care of your stuff if you keep your boxes and show them in the listing. Though that might not matter for everybody, but I could tell you for sure people are much more likely to buy a figure with a box. And that's not even thinking about how they're going to like ship it to you. Without the box, that is so much more of a risk. Things can break during transit, and if something does, you're screwed. They're just gonna make a dispute on the sale, and you're just gonna lose the money and the figure. Like, you might get it back, but at that point it's broken, and then like, what do you even sell it for, right? But if the figure's fairly straightforward, right? If they're just standing there, it's not like super dynamic, the hair isn't so voluminous, flowing all over the place, like there's not too many delicate pieces on the outfit, then in that case, I feel like those figures would be pretty easy to get rid of the boxes for if that's something you are considering, right? I would say like prize figures are also very easy to get rid of in terms of boxes. You don't really need the boxes for those unless like it's a very specific type of prize figure. Nendos as well, you could do, like you just put the accessories in little baggies and then you kind of put them all in one bigger box, stuff like that. That's something you can do if you collect a lot of Nendos, because those definitely add up. One of the easiest types of figures to collect for, but then you end up with 100 of them, and it's 100 boxes just stacked up in your room, right? You condense it down if possible, if that's something you want to do. Though I totally understand if you don't want to do that, because I personally don't want to do that too much. Though I will be doing it a little bit in the future. So as I mentioned in the beginning of the video, I tend to have a positive outlook on downsizing. I frankly look forward to doing it, and I guess it's time to talk about why. And we've been kind of going through it throughout this video, but I might as well reiterate while adding a little bit more on top of that. The main thing is really freeing up space for figures that I know I'm going to appreciate more. It's always been pretty important to me for my collection to reflect myself, my opinions and my tastes, and just what I value in terms of collecting, but also what I value outside of the figures themselves, the media that I enjoy. That's my favorite aspect of figures in general, outside of just appreciating the craftsmanship and just the talent and work that goes into these things. And I just know it's not feasibly possible to collect a figure or two from every single show or game that I like. Literally impossible. I don't have the space for that. So it's best for me to try as best as I can to focus on what I really appreciate, while, also mixing in some just character designs I really like. I'm not above collecting figures that I don't know the source material for, but to keep things under control, that's what 90% of my collection kind of has to be. Otherwise, I would not be able to handle all of this. So you're freeing up space, right? You're making room for your collectibles that you're going to value more. But by downsizing your collection, which in this instance most likely means you're selling off your stuff, you're going to accumulate funds, which you could use however you would like to. But in this instance, when we're talking about, collectible anime figures, it kind of just gives you a situation of guilt-free shopping. That's the way I see it. This hobby has gotten so goddamn expensive, and I feel very guilty just kind of continuously pre-ordering these figures that cost at least $200 these days. So to have this extra money that initially was put into the hobby come back to me, I could just put it back into the hobby, and I don't have to feel so bad about digging into the bank account. And I'm not gonna lie and say this is super responsible to do, but as collectors, we're going to continue to want these figures. So if we have extra money that we got through the hobby anyway, just because we didn't want those figures anymore, I think it's a great idea. Just put that money back in there, and now you can buy some stuff that you really want. But to get back on track here, I think it also helps you realize what types of figures you really do like to collect, whether it be the specific line like Nendos, Figma, articulated figures, scales, statues, resin. You're never gonna really know unless you actually buy this stuff and have it, and then you can decide which stuff you like the most. So while that does mean you have to put a lot of money into the hobby, you get the money back if you sell the stuff you no longer like, and then you could focus on the types of figures that you really do like the most. That's definitely something that happens to a lot of people, and only experience can really give you the answer. Another reason is less stress about the inevitable pre-orders that you've made, probably, I know I have, that are coming in soon that you no longer have room for. So you downsize a little bit, and then those shelves are free for those beautiful figures that are coming in. You'll feel a lot better about that if you've already made the room for them. And I guess my final point here is that it really helps avoid burnout. Now, burnout is a whole topic that I would love to talk about another time. It's something that a lot of collectors struggle with, and something that inevitably just pushes people out of this hobby because they no longer want to deal with collecting. And that's a big shame. But a lot of it does come from overspending way too fast and accumulating way too many figures right when you get into the hobby. It's all about moderation, right? But even so, even if you are keeping things under control, you might feel at some point it's too much. You look around your room, you see figures you no longer care about, it kind of just bums you out. You don't like the hobby as much as you used to. And you kind of just make that rash decision to just get rid of everything. Whereas in my opinion, I think you should take things slow, whether it be collecting the figures themselves or actually getting rid of figures. You don't have to just dump everything immediately, even though people love to do that for some reason. But yeah, if you never got to that point of tipping the scales a little bit too far, then it'll help just keep you interested in the hobby altogether. But yeah, I would love to talk about burnout at some point. It's a really interesting just discussion, and I don't think I've really ever talked about it, but that'll have to be saved for another day. But yeah, that's gonna do it for our downsizing video. I feel like I rambled a little bit too much in this one, but it's okay, we're just having a discussion here. Let me know if you guys have been thinking about downsizing. Let me know if you've done that in the past. You might do it in the future. Or if you think this is a stupid topic altogether, who would ever downsize? I love my anime figures. I would never get rid of them. Let me know in the comments below. Really appreciate you guys checking this one out. If you want to support the channel, subscribe, like, and I do now have a Patreon if you would like to check that out in the description down below. But that's going to do it for me. I gotta pack this stuff, I'm moving in a couple of weeks, and I really gotta get going. So, thanks again for watching, and I'll see you guys very soon for the next one. Peace.